So I will let you know when we have humans watching. I shared this out on the weekly Space Hangout, and I'm about to tweet it with all the hashtags. And I can confirm the stream is live. And there's the YouTube link. And I'm going to retweet it on CosmoQuest. Okay. And I have it set so that it will automatically, depending on who's talking, go back and forth between the two of us.
Okay.
So do you want me to do the intro, or do you want to do the intro?
Oh, I can do it.
Okay.
So I guess we have some folks online.
We don't, but we might as well start. And this goes out in audio anyways. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, well, welcome everybody to this evening's Hangout. I'm Andy Shaner with the Lunar Planetary Institute. And this is our next episode in our Center for Lunar Science and Explorations Hangout series. CLSE, we call ourselves, as a member of the NASA Survey Institute. And this is one of the things we do as our public engagement activities, is to share science related to the small bodies of the solar system, including the moon and asteroids. And science and other activities related to the solar system. So this evening, we are talking with Dr. Pamela Gay, who usually is talking more than me during these. But she's our guest tonight, and she's going to be talking about this event you may have heard of coming up this summer on August 21st, the Great American Total Solar Eclipse, August 21st, 2017. So let's just get started. If you have a question at any time during this evening, please just say something there in the chat box, and we'll pass that along. So, Pamela, let's just remind everybody, what is a solar eclipse to start with?
So we have three different possible alignments of the sun, the moon, and the earth. The one that most people are familiar with, because they see it on a fairly regular basis, is the special alignment called a lunar eclipse, which is when the moon ends up opposite the sun on the earth, so that the earth's shadow completely covers the moon. Most months, the moon is above the earth's shadow, below the earth's shadow, but a couple times a year, visible to half the globe, we have the moon just getting itself right in that shadow. Now, the other special alignment we have is when the moon goes around to the other side, and what we have is the moon perfectly aligned between the earth and sun, so that the moon's shadow touches the earth. Now, most of the time, the moon's shadow is either below the earth, above the earth, by which I mean north of the earth, south of the earth, but on like a galactic, or rather a solar system plane. So when the shadow happens to touch the earth, well, when you're in something's shadow, you can't see the sun. So with this particular alignment, we have the shadow of the moon touching the earth, and actually, as the earth rotates, as the earth orbits, as the moon orbits, we have this shadow play where that shadow moves across the continental United States, starting up in Oregon and exiting out South Carolina.
The point you make about the moon being either like above or below the earth is actually a really important thing for understanding eclipses, because a misconception is that we should see solar eclipses every month when the moon is between the earth and the sun. But because of that very important point about the moon's part being tilted, we don't. So thank you for making sure you bring it up, which I knew you would, being the brilliant astronomer that you are. So this particular eclipse coming up this summer, why is it such a big deal, at least to those in the North America and specifically the U.S.?
Well, most of the time, solar eclipses seem to happen everywhere but here. And the reason I can say that is because where I am right now in the middle of the United States, outside of St. Louis, we haven't had a total solar eclipse since the 1400s. So it's kind of been a while. And it turns out that solar eclipses, because they rely on these rare alignments, we get about one a year somewhere on the surface of the planet. But sometimes that somewhere is somewhere hard to get, like Svalbard, which has maybe more polar bears than humans. And so it's just not every year that here in the United States we get this kind of an opportunity. And it's not just that it's somewhere in the United States, because some of the people out there may remember back in 1994, if you were far enough north in the United States, you got to see a partial solar eclipse. This one, it's not just partial for some of the United States. It's not just full for a corner of the United States. It's sweeping across the long way across the country. And it's estimated that there are hundreds of thousands of people who are either already in the path or just a couple hours drive away from the path. And it very quickly gets to millions of people in this country of 300 million people are able to go be in that path.
So, Pamela, will you be in the path?
I will, unless something goes terribly, terribly wrong. Now, I do personally always leave space for things to go terribly wrong, because I attract rain. So my two attempts to see total solar eclipses have both led to me being rained upon. One of my two attempts to view a Venus transit led to me being rained upon. I get rained on a lot. It could be the people I'll be traveling with, like, decide to tie me up, put me in a car, and head me off the Totality line so that they can enjoy the experience.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. Maybe this will be the good one.
I hope so. What about you? Where will you be?
Well, so I'll be here in Houston, which we will see about a 70% eclipse, or however you say it. 70% of the sun will be eclipsed by the moon from here in Houston. So not a total eclipse, but considering how far south we are compared to where Totality is, that's pretty good. That's not bad. But we have the same problem. Even if it's not raining, it could just be cloudy. So here's hoping.
And what's kind of amazing about this one is that while Totality is kind of awesome in how it goes from Oregon all the way across the United States, this is called the Great North American Eclipse because it's not like the sun limits itself to the United States. There are going to be partial phases where you see a significant portion of the sun eclipsed, but not all of it. It's kind of a round-mouthed Pac-Man or a thin sliver, depending on just where you are. You'll be able to see this partial phase throughout much of Mexico and Canada. So this really is an experience where no matter where you are in the continental US, you will see eclipse. You may not see total eclipse, but you'll see eclipse. And as long as you're in this continent and not too far up in northern Canada and Alaska, you're going to see something significant and worth remembering.
Yes, so for our two events we're having here, we're trying to kind of promote this as saying, well, okay, well, it's about 70%, but this is still really cool, and this is a really a good opportunity just to get outside, and get around people in your neighborhood or in your community or who you work with, and just watch this thing with proper viewing, of course. And just look at it. That's been a big push, of course, for this whole thing is viewing, but making sure you do it safely. Do you want to say something about that?
I do. And this is one of those things where if you like your eyeballs, do not give the sun more than a glancing look. Now, we've all done I'm driving down the highway, the sun is directly in front of me, I can't help but look at it a little bit. We've all done oh, look at that pretty sunset, look at the sun a little bit. You shouldn't do that too much, but it's not going to melt your eyeballs. What will melt your eyeballs is looking at the sun through a telescope for even a glancing look. Don't do that. What will destroy your eyes is looking at the sun through binoculars for even a glancing moment. Don't do that either. And to be able to actually enjoy the eclipse, to not have these red afterglows that are making it possible for you to see what's going on. The only safe way and the only enjoyable way to experience the eclipse is with some sort of a solar filter. There are a lot of them available out there. If you check out either the NASA Eclipse website or the American Astronomical Society Eclipse website, they both have information on how you can get glasses. And a lot of museums and school systems are giving them away for free. So get yourself just a simple pair of eclipse viewers, eclipse glasses that will let you just sit there and, well, stare at the sun in a way you otherwise never can do safely.
Right, and if you didn't say this already, and that's just as good as a telescope, right? It's not like you're trying to look at details on the sun. You're just wanting to see how it's being covered up. So sun's big enough, it's close enough. You don't really need a telescope with a filter.
The way to think of it is we've all enjoyed the phases of the moon without a telescope. You can go outside tonight and you can see moon's not exactly full, not exactly new, and you can enjoy that phase of the moon and you can see it clearly. With a solar eclipse, the sun isn't actually going through phases, but it's the same kind of effect where we don't get to see the entire sun at once, and we can see the difference between a crescent sun and a most of the way there sun just by looking with our eyeballs.
Yeah, and what's really cool too to look for if you're out there, just look at like shadows from a tree.
Yes.
You see multiple eclipses on the ground at one time. It's a really cool effect. Something else to maybe look out for, and I've heard about, but this is all anecdotal, is that biology, animals and certain plants that react to like the setting sun, for example, will start to behave during an eclipse as if it is that time of day, even though the eclipse will be like in the middle of the day. At least the totality will be. Go ahead.
And from everything I've read, that's entirely true. As I said, I'm always rained on. But from what I've read and what I've seen in videos, because this is a slow process with the moon taking a couple of hours to completely cover up the sun, you see the world slowly getting a little darker, a little bit more weirdly lit. And even though it's going to be occurring in late morning in Oregon, in early afternoon in South Carolina, animals can't read clocks. They don't have watches. And so what they're paying attention to is how bright is the sky. And based on that sky brightness, you'll see chickens go up into their coops. You'll see a variety of these nesting behaviors taking place. And some of the sea critters are actually known to jump up out of the ocean to try and understand what's going on. Dolphins, for instance, are seen to do this.
Interesting. So the California Academy of Science, I believe, they've developed an app where you can, if you have the app and if you're out viewing the eclipse and if you notice what seems to be maybe strange behavior, you can like make a note of that in the app as a citizen science project that they're doing specifically for the eclipse. What are some other, citizen science activities that people could be part of for the summer eclipse?
The biggest one that people can join in is the Mega Movie Project. Just Google those words, Mega Movie Solar Eclipse. And this is a project where, with help from Google and the National Science Foundation, people are being asked to go out and take photos of the sun as it's hitting totality. And in the moments before totality and just after, sunlight will glint around the edges of the sun and shine through the valleys and the places between the mountains and the walls of the craters and create what's called the diamond ring effect. This is where you get what appears to be a diamond shining on the side of the moon. And you can use this diamond ring effect to start to study, well, the topography of the moon in very interesting ways if you know exactly when a photo was taken and where it was taken from. And there are folks working on developing an app to go along with this project, and they're working to recruit photographers all across the United States just as we're giving this talk. So go out and give this a Google. And a lot of the glasses that are being given away are funded by Google and have all the information on where to go to find out more about the Mega Movie Project. Now, that's the one that's open to absolutely everyone. But if you're taking part in a big celebration, you may see people with fancy telescopes set up that are very, very intent on what they're doing and concentrating very hard. And a lot of these folks are engaged in what's called Citizen Kate. And this is a project where they have a set of absolutely identical telescopes and cameras lined up all across the United States, fairly evenly spaced. And what they're going to be doing is photographing the corona of the sun, which is this hot gas that is all around the main bright disk of the sun that we normally see. And it turns out the only time we can observe the corona right up close to the surface of the sun is during this kind of eclipse, when the moon blocks out the brightest light for us and leaves us this great opportunity to see the corona.
Yeah, the diamond ring effect is really cool, and also a thing called Bailey's beads.
Yes.
As well. And what I guess from a lunar science standpoint, which is really interesting that one of our scientists always points out. First of all, you can't have you can't have a solar eclipse without the moon, right?
Yes.
And so during an eclipse, you can kind of view the moon as both an astronomical object and a geologic object. I mean, it's an astronomical because it's up there in the sky. It's crossing in front of the sun, so it's up there in the heavens. But because of the diamond ring effect and Bailey's bead, that shows there is topography on the moon. As you said, we can learn something about that. So the moon isn't just this orb, which we've known forever. But some people don't. It's not just this thing up there. It has its own geology. It has its very own interesting geology. And we've been learning a lot about that over the past decade. I just want to hope to just continue to learn more about it.
And this is one of the most interesting ways that we can start to make these detailed surface measurements. And it's amazing to see that just a cell phone on the Earth is sometimes a good way to probe that million-mile away moon.
Absolutely, yeah. So in terms of being able to be involved, not with just the ways you just discussed, but what about, there's also a way you can sign up to be a subject matter expert.
Yes. So some of you who are out there listening are listening not because you don't already know all of this stuff, but because you want to see how we're presenting it. And those of you who already know all this stuff, who might be working for NASA or a research center or be a local museum expert, you're what we call a subject matter expert. And NASA is working, and the American Astronomical Society is working to put together various lists of people who are available to talk to the media, available to talk to the public. And by going to both of their different websites, because this is too big of an effort for any one association to handle. Between these two different websites, you can find all the lists that you can sign up for so that you can help, well, get the word out and help make sure that people have a safe and enjoyable and educational experience on August 21st.
So, amateur astronomers out there listening, get on there and sign up. It's a pretty cool opportunity. And of course, nothing else, maybe you can host an event. If you aren't already planning to do so, you can start thinking about that now.
Yes. And as you start thinking about how you're going to spend the day of the eclipse, plan ahead. This isn't one of those things that you can just sort of do at the last possible second. One of the great concerns that we're having for this great eclipse is just how bad the traffic's going to get. Now, I live here in the middle of the country, and we're even worried about what's going to happen here, because if we have half of Chicago decide that St. Louis is the closest major city that the eclipse can be seen, we're going to run out of everything. And if you can, make it a long weekend. Leave on Friday, go to wherever you're going to experience the eclipse, camp for a couple of days. Enjoy this great nation we have in all of its geologic wonder. Use this as an excuse to go hiking, to go see something you've never seen before. If you're on the East Coast, I especially am speaking to you. The eclipse path to get to it, we're looking at Boston, New York, DC, Baltimore, Atlanta. People from all of these cities are only a few hours drive from the path. And if they all go to the path, no one's actually going to go anywhere. So plan ahead, leave ahead.
And I'll say, if you're somebody who might find yourself possibly driving through Kansas, being from there, I apologize for the seemingly lack of geology. But that's not exactly true. There actually is some really cool things up near Salina. Look it up, called Rock City, near Salina, Kansas, off I-70. Look it up. I won't go into it here. It is kind of cool if you just look it up. It has to do with ancient sharks. I'll tell you that much.
And Route 66 outside of St. Louis crosses the eclipse path. And the the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, we have a new office here in Southern Illinois that is on Route 66.
Oh.
So if you're driving down Route 66 to get someplace on the path, let us know ahead of time, and maybe we can hand you some glasses.
Excellent. Very good. Yeah, we got some viewers with little cards, not the glasses, and we we did some custom ones, but we had to get those like really soon, because they said pretty soon they won't be able to do custom anymore. But you can probably still at least get their general ones. So where was sorry.
So eclipse viewers traveling across the United States, get there early.
Yes.
Now the one group thing, I'm not sure the correct pronoun here, that will have the absolute best view of this eclipse is actually the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. And this is something I learned from you.
Oh, yes. Yes. So it'll actually be sitting, of course, between the Earth and the Moon, right? The Earth and the Moon, as it orbits the Moon, of course. And it's going to be taking some observations of the Earth, simply looking at the shadow as it crosses the face, the Moon shadow as it crosses the face of the Earth. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is one of those things that is just kind of creepy and awesome to look at, because it's that great nothing from Neverending Story that is eating small bits of the Earth one at a time. And while I would wish clouds on no one, the shadow actually shows up best against clouds. So I'm hoping for a nice storm off one of the coasts, but not interfering with anyone actually trying to observe. And so there's a lot of different ways to observe this. You can be a spacecraft out between the Moon and the Earth. You can be a human anywhere in North America except for the northernmost extremes. And all of us are going to have a shared experience. Now, this brings the other problem of the day that we're somewhat concerned about. A lot of folks are going to be working to live stream the event. So if you are in Florida, clouded out, not getting Totality anyways, if you have cable television, tune in to NASA Edge, tune in to NASA TV, follow along with their experiences from multiple sites across the United States, including Carbondale, Illinois. If you're trying to stream things, you may encounter the fact that everyone in the United States and Canada and Mexico and other points are all trying to Instagram, to tweet, to Facebook, to share their experience too. So kind of be prepared for the internet to have a bad day.
Yeah, we're going to be relying on the stream to show the totality at both of our events. And I've had that worry in the back of my mind the whole time. And one of the locations they don't know if it's at a park and they have Wi-Fi, but they're not sure if they can run an Ethernet cable out. So we'll see what happens.
And take plenty of water and be prepared to just have a great day. One of my favorite photos that I've ever found of the eclipse, and unfortunately it had copyright, so I can't share it on this Hangout. It was a photo of a group of people at the eclipse in England a couple of years ago, where they're all in a park, they're all lounging out on blankets, they have wine, and they have cheese plates, and it's just such a pleasing experience in every way. Now, it's going to be August, so it's going to be hot and a little less pleasing, and cheese is probably going to do bad things in the sun. But this is one of those times where you can be out there with your cooler, take your Gatorade, share a fruit plate, and share an experience and build some memories. And during that few seconds to couple of minutes of totality that you might experience, depending on where you are along the path and how close you are to the center line, while you're experiencing it, get your nose out of the back of your camera and stop looking at your phone and just enjoy the moment. Totality is the one and only time you can look at the sun without those glasses, without any protection, and it's safe. So enjoy totality instead of technology.
Well said. And we're coming up at the end of our time here. And I was going to leave you with the last word, but I think you just did. So, so I'll just remind everyone that we'll have another web hangout here next, July. That'll be July 19th. We'll be talking to Dave Blewett from the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. He'll be talking about his research of small bodies, and specifically about, he's gone to Antarctica at least once to pick up some meteorites off the ice. So we'll be talking about those expeditions. And if you get a chance to talk to somebody about those are fascinating, absolutely fascinating discussions about what they're doing down there, what they find, and maybe even some of the little antics they might play on each other. And then August 16th, we'll hear from a group of high school students who spent the past school year doing some research for one of our other education programs at CLSE. It was specifically some lunar research, and they will be traveling to the NASA Survey Exploration Science Forum in July. Well, they will be presenting their research in person. So they won this competition of 10 schools across the country, and they're being sent out there to present their poster in person. So they'll be here in August to talk about their experience at the forum, but also just the research experience in general. I won't be with you all next month, possibly August, we'll see, but I will leave you all with Pamela's capable hands. But Pamela, if there is anything else you want to say before we sign off, please do.
Go get eclipse glasses and book your hotel with refundable rooms before you go to bed tonight, and make sure you have a room.
Very good. Very sound advice. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you again in about a month. Take care.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Pamela.